Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Darkest Timeline podcast. Just me for the day, talking about stuff from the week when it was recorded. There's running. Running's usually in there. There's the dangers of cyclists. There is birthday talk. And all other host of things. There's also games, movies, TV. So, if you're here for the entertainment, it is there. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Drop any reviews you might want to drop. Share the podcast around. And, just anything else you can think of. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the Darkest Timeline podcast. Hello. How you doing? You all right? One of those moments in time where I looked at the list of stuff to talk about today and was like, my word, was that only a week ago? First thing on the list, I'm like, that feels like it was 3 weeks ago. So either it's been a super busy week, jam-packed with lots of things, or, I don't know, slipped through a black hole or something. Spoilers, it was not a busy week. In fact, I've got a short list this week. There's that part of me that it's kind of like I might just bang through this, and if it ends up being half an hour, hey. And then there's the part of me that's like, yeah, it's going to be an hour and a half, because that's the way these things go. Anyway, let's get into it. How are you doing? You having a good time? Good week? Good day? Good moment when you are listening to this? So, we had a birthday in our house. It's not even a week. I cannot get past it. It's not even a week ago. That's mental. Anyway, we had a birthday in our house, so we had to decide what to do for the day. We'd had a party the weekend before, as we know, we've discussed this, but there was a what to do for the day. A few ideas floating around. Some expensive, some not so expensive. Still, money. And we landed on going to the beach. Now, I'm a little bit set in my ways where the beach is concerned for a variety of different reasons. I'm somebody who is probably considered to be quite set in his ways anyway about most things. And I often look at that and think about it and go, why is that? And it's like, well, it's trial and error. So if I'm going to the beach, I want to go to a particular beach because it ticks a whole host of boxes. Which in turn means that I don't want to go to certain other beaches. However, I was convinced to go to not my first choice. I was also told, oh, by the way, I've already checked the weather. You don't need to worry. I've checked the weather. And it's going to be bad weather. I'm like, this is fantastic. So, okay, it's fine, because I think what we're really looking for is to go on the arcades, go on the 2p machines, go on the claw grabby things, go on the horse racy, the electronic horse racing thing, that sort of stuff. Jumping ahead a little, it wasn't until we got there and I went, it's out of season. Nothing's going to be open. It's a weekday out of season. Nothing is going to be open. Very pleased to say, was proved wrong. Anyway, completely jumping ahead there. So, I need to move because my leg's going to sleep. 1 second. Oh, piss off, computer. Honestly. Oh, all right. Why? Why do you do that? One of the programs I use for podcasting, I get it all set up, ready to go, ready to roll before I click record. It's not even a one I use for recording. It's one I use for video coding. And it does this thing where it closes itself down. It doesn't even minimize itself. It just closes. It's so weird and randomly annoying. Anyway, I still need to move. Oh, Jesus. Like I say, my leg was going to sleep. And I'm going to do that. Some of the things you'd have thought I'd have started with. Anyway, so I have a theory. Okay, and here's my theory. There are certain things in life that you can take as a given. So, if somebody says to you, it's going to rain tomorrow, you can go, okay. If somebody says, it's going to rain tomorrow, you can go, is it? Because it's sunny right now. It's not a cloud in the sky. Let me check the weather. And you check the weather and it goes, yep, so it's going to rain tomorrow. Well, there we go. Or a third option is somebody says it's going to rain tomorrow. You check the weather says it's going to rain tomorrow. And you say, I don't think it's going to rain tomorrow. Now, you know, it's one of those. Some might say wishful thinking, some might say confidence, some might say insanity. For a long time now, I've had this completely unfounded theory. When you need it to be nice weather, every now and then it'll come through for you. So, there's ways to ensure this. 2 things. Number 1, planning a round of golf. You can say, I've looked 10 days in the future, and in 10 days' time it says it's going to be a glorious sunny day, no wind, best golf day you could possibly have. And you can book to play golf on that day, and chances are you get to that day and it's blowing 40 miles an hour and it's snowing. That's the way the world works. Another way to do it is to say, we're playing golf on Thursday. You don't look at the weather, you don't check the weather, nothing. When it gets to that day, you pack your sunglasses, you pack your hat, you pack your sun cream, and you get out there, and there's a chance, there's a possibility it's going to be glorious sunshine. Because you've made it so, you willed it into reality. Years ago, I took on this theory of when you go to the beach, you want it to be a nice day. You don't want it to be raining. You don't want it to be. I went to the beach one day. Absolutely glorious at home. Absolutely glorious. And you're just like, well, it's only going to get better down at the beach. Travel for an hour and whatever to the beach, and it's foggy. You know, that sea fog that's apparently a thing. Sea fog. And as we were coming down the hill to the beach, it's like, what the hell is this? It looked like that film, The Mist. Anyway, so it's going to be bad weather when we go to the beach, but it doesn't matter because we're going to be indoors most of the time. And I went, okay. So just as we're leaving the house, I got my sunglasses, I put them on my face, got in the car, and away we go. And I'm not going to lie, to start off with, on our journey, I could barely see. It was grey, cloudy, miserable, not raining, but not the best of days. By the time we got to the beach, now I will caveat this by saying The car / sat nav was like, do you want to go the direct route to the beach? Like, yeah, ideally. Nah, you want to go the back way. The twisty, turny, windy way. It's an hour away, but I'm going to tell you it's going to take an hour and a half. For literally no reason. At one point, it wanted us to do 4 left turns. And if you can picture it, 4 left turns is essentially a square or a circle. It brings you back on yourself. After the 3rd time it told me to turn left, I was like, hang on a minute, something's gone seriously wrong here. And I told it to go and... So, yeah, the car was like, we're going to go the scenic route and it's going to take you an extra half an hour to get there. So, you know, plenty of time for the weather to change. But by the time we got to the beach, it was super windy. But where we parked compared to where we were going, that section is always windy, whether it's a glorious day or not. We walked off, we walked down. My daughter, it's birthday, all she wanted to do was build a sandcastle on the beach. Now, if the weather hadn't been great, you can still build a sandcastle. Shortest version of this story is, as I'm sure you've probably worked out by now, absolutely glorious day. I took a couple of pictures. Sat. I think we were having something to eat. Sat. A little bit back from the beach. Absolutely glorious day. And I'll tell you this much. We were only there. A couple of hours. There was this whole thing about we needed to go early. We needed to get back early so that we could fit a load of stuff in. You know, present opening and stuff like that. Because we were going out for tea. So, we're only there a couple of hours. It was glorious for the time we were there. Set off to come home. Weather goes back to being crap. It's like, can you ask for a better time? I don't think so. I had a weird recollection of being at that beach, sitting in a pub for an entire day, drinking myself silly, but couldn't work out how I got there, couldn't work out who I'd gone with, and couldn't work out how I got home. And had to, in the end, presume that I'd gone on the train. But all I could think was, I would never go on the train to the beach. So maybe it was a dream. So there we go. We went to the beach. Took my daughter several attempts to open all of her presents. I was working on the principal before it was a birthday, before she got all these presents, and she had far too much stuff. And she had a party, and everybody at the party very generously brought her gifts, and people had given her money to add to a huge mountain of money. And I was just like, something's gone wrong here, because she hasn't even got to her actual birthday, where I know for a fact she's got a ridiculous number of things. Now, on the flip side, what I will say is this: she has enjoyed and appreciated every single item that she's had. She's played with it all. She's played with each individual item a lot. So from that perspective, I'm not so worried. What I am worried about is the fact that we didn't have enough room for all of the stuff before her birthday. There was this really weird thing. Like I was really excited, because she's finally reached that age where she's excited. She has that understanding. She counts the days down, even though she can't quite get her head around how days work. She was super excited, which, as a parent, that's what you want. That's what you're looking for. You wait for that point in time where they can be excited about stuff. And then there is an aspect of managing expectations, excitement, stuff like this. There are things that she wants to do in the not too distant future. It's like, I don't think we can do that. You know, that sort of stuff. You have to manage expectations with children. But I got to the end of the day, and it was such a as it always is, it was such a whirlwind of a day. I got to the end of the day and I was like, did I even wish her happy birthday? You know, that kind of, the most basic of things. The most basic of things. I was like, I mean, I did, but I was like, did I even wish her happy birthday? I did something to her that I was, part of me was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And then I ended up doing to her what I said I wasn't going to do. I went into her bedroom and was playing birthday music. The Happy Birthday song, the Stevie Wonder one. I was playing it right in her ear while she was asleep, which was very reminiscent of somebody else's childhood. But yeah, she was not she was not happy about it. So a birthday down. Possibly the most hilarious thing is that she's now looking forward to Christmas, and I'm like, well, good luck with that one. It's 9 months away, so you look forward to Christmas. You start writing your Christmas list now. So something that some people will absolutely know, and something that some people might not know is, I am a man that likes a pet peeve. And there have been times when I have collected pet peeves and carried them around with me like some kind of weird trophy. And there may have been a point in time where a particular podcast was basically just me bitch moaning and complaining about my pet peeves for 90 minutes or so. And then I had a series of comments about how maybe that's not what people want to listen to, and I stopped doing it. However, I'm going to talk about a pet peeve. Now, there is a reason for this, and you'll see why. So, something that drives me at the flipping wall is cyclists riding on the pavement. Now, I know what you're thinking. If you are a cyclist, you're like, oh, geez, come on. You know, it's dangerous on the roads. You are correct. When I was a cyclist, I used to hate riding on the road because of motorists. And now I'm a motorist. I have very little time for cyclists that ride on the road. So there is that thing that if I was driving down the road and I saw a cyclist on the pavement, I'd probably be less bothered. However, I am also a pedestrian and a dog walker, and my dog doesn't like it when people, things, objects, leaves, wind, sound, suggestion come up behind him. This all stems back to good few months ago. It could even be a year ago, to be fair. He wasn't attacked. He was kind of jumped, but there was no, like, short version is he was leaving the park one day, just plodding along, minding his own business, and there were 3 dogs of varying different sizes. They were all off the lead, and they all ran up to him to say hello. All 3 of them came up behind him. I don't know how he didn't know this. I heard them coming from the other side of the park. There was 3 of them. They weren't exactly quiet. He has better hearing, being a dog, better sense of smell. All of this, I have no idea how they managed to get as close to him as they did, but they came up right behind him, went round the front of him, and it scared him. And he has been scared of things coming up behind him ever since. So, what this means is that when a cyclist rides up behind you on the pavement and goes round you, he jumps a mile, rips my arm out of its socket, does I can't quite explain it, it's like a skitterish kind of, oh my God, I think I'm dying kind of thing, which hurts me. And I'm like, oh, for flip's sake, how about you get off the flipping pavement, get on the road or on the cycle path where you're supposed to be, and then I don't have to deal with this shit. So, there is a particular section where we walk. It's not a long section, it's just a particular section. The issue I have with this section is this. It's in between two cycle paths. So there is a cycle path on the opposite side of the road, on the road. And then further down, the pavement splits into two. One side is a cycle path and the other side is a pavement. So essentially, you ride along the cycle path on one side, you cross over, and then you ride on the pavement cycle path on the other side. Simple. Or so you would think. However, as a cyclist, what a cyclist will do is just ride down the pavement. It's a super narrow pavement. There's like grass either side. They come up at speed. And like I said, they scare the dog, which for me is the bigger issue, other than the fact that, you know, it's illegal when it's done at night and there's no lights on the bike. It's doubly illegal, so on and so forth. So this section of pavement, it just happening more and more and more and more and more, and it was winding me up more and more and more and more and more, as I'm sure you can see and even partially agree. It's just not fun. So there was a situation a week or so ago where a woman came up behind, rang her bell, and asked to get past. And I was about to unleash with both barrels along the, look, I'm really sorry, but this isn't a cycle path, this is a pavement. And you don't, when I'm walking my dog, you don't have any right to get past, so you can just wait. And as I opened my mouth to start this tirade, I realised that the woman with the bike had a child in one of those bike seats on the back. And I went, I'll just leave it. What made that situation worse was that I watched her ride down to a set of traffic lights and cross over onto the other side of the road, which is where the cycle path is. Could have saved herself a lot of trouble and just ridden down the cycle path on the side of the road that she wanted to be on. But anyway, I digress. So, the other morning, I am walking the dog. I have watched one cyclist cross over the road at the traffic lights and ride off down the pavement, going round the people that are using the pavement as they should be, narrowly avoiding a tiny child that's walking down the pavement. I'm like, this is the sort of thing I'm talking about. If that child, tiny little child, veered ever so slightly, that kid gets hit by a bike that shouldn't be on the pavement, and then we'll all know about it. But it won't be the cyclist's fault. I'm sure it'll be the child's fault. So, and as a side note, you might think that this is me overreacting, but when I was about 14, I got thrown into the road, onto a busy main road, into the road for riding on the pavement on a bike. Thrown into the road. Okay? So, walking the dog. I've seen this cyclist ride off, having crossed over at the traffic lights, crossing away from the cycle path. Let's not forget this bit. I'm like, gee, why? I'm walking along, walking the dog, and I hear a familiar sound, the sound of a bike bell. And I turn round to see a guy who says, "Oh, I'm just going to get past you." Now this guy, late 50s, early 60s. And I went, I just snapped. I was like, "No, I'm sorry, mate. This is not a cycle path. This is a pavement. There is a cycle path on the other side of the road that has been put there for people like you to ride on, so that you don't ride on here. This is a pavement. This is not for you to cycle on." His response to me was, "I know," as he passed me and rode off down the street, down the pavement, the opposite side of the road. And I watched him get to the end of the pavement and turn off down the road. And I thought to myself, looking at you and watching the direction you're going, I can almost guess what you do for a job. I bet you dollars to donuts you're a teacher. And you know, why not? Why not ride on the wrong side of the road? Why not ride on the pavement? Why not tell me that you know you're not supposed to be riding on the pavement, but you don't care? And that was that. I walked the dog home. I got home. I came in. Got showered. Hair brushed, teeth brushed, got dressed, got ready to take my daughter to dance lesson. Got in the car. Oh, now, important part of this story. I relayed all of this to Leanne when I got home. I was like, "It's finally happened." And she went, "You've shouted at someone, haven't you?" I went, "You know I have. That was bound to happen." So that was that. I told her the story. I was like, "Oh, it's okay. He knew. That made it okay." I was like, "I bet he was a teacher." Went off, got in the shower, showered, teeth, hair, dressed. Got the child in the car, got in the car and set off to go to dance class. Went to the top of the street. Went to the end of the next street, turned onto the next street. I went, "You have got to be fucking kidding me." As I saw the same person again, the same man, the culprit, the criminal, teaching cycling proficiency. You cannot write this shit. You couldn't even write. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Now, what I did was I made the car dial Leanne to relay this story to. I was like, this has got to be a joke. What I should have done, what I wanted to do, what I would have done if obviously, he hadn't been there teaching a child how to ride a bike. What I was going to do was get up close, roll the window down and just go, "I hope you're not teaching him to ride on the pavement, because that's illegal, And then drive off. Here's a weird one. Many moons ago, when I started running, when I started the running journey, I was very overweight, and now I am very overweight. Anyway, that's not important. Maybe it is. When I started running, I cannot imagine what I must look like. I will have been a giant man, and I don't mean tall. Blubbering my way down the street. I imagine there was man boobs going everywhere. Everything that you could possibly imagine with a man that's the best part of 30 stone running down the street. And as I'm sure you can imagine, I got a lot of funny looks. And there was a certain section where I used to run. When I got to a point where I could run like longer distance, I used to run home from work. And there was a certain section where people would just like point, laugh, point in that kind of, what is that? You know, all that sort of stuff. And it's one of those, honestly, if I'd have cared, I probably wouldn't have been doing it if I'd have cared. So it didn't overly bother me. But it does make a little bit of an impact. It does make you think like, you know, and all I ever worked on the principle of was anytime I saw anybody that was like pointing, even like pointing and laughing, pointing and jeering or whatever, I would always think, how far have you run today? Because I'm on for a 5K, or I'm running home and it's 5K and I'm carrying a bag on my back that's got God knows how much weight in it, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And that's the kind of thing that means that you don't care. But for a while, for a long time, it was quite evident, quite apparent. And then as time went on, it was just kind of, I think people kind of looked at it as a, hey, look, there's a fat man running. Whereas originally it was like, oh my God, that is a building walking down the street, going ever so slightly faster than walking. And that was kind of that. And then a big part of the weight went, and then some of it came back and some of it went again. And now I'm kind of circling. I can't seem to cross the finish line. Part of me wonders if it's psychological. I don't know. Anyway, but recently it started happening again. It's weird. I don't know if I've suddenly become super sensitive or if I've suddenly started noticing stuff more or what. But all of a sudden, when I'm out running, there was a situation where I was getting to the top of a street and a car came round the corner, and there was two people in the front of the car and they were like pointing at me. And I'm like, can I help you? Autograph maybe? And then the thing that puzzles me is the laughing. Like, part of me, I'm like, have I got something on my face? Am I beetroot red? Am I like red like a double-decker bus or something? It's been super weird, but super apparent. It's like all of a sudden, like I said, I feel like I've got like something on my face, or like that time that I did a park run and my shorts fell down. To the point where I'm running along and I'm having to check that my shorts are still up. Super weird, super random. Only started recently, in like the last week or so. Couple of weeks. In fact, it happened this morning. I came round a corner. There was a guy on the other side of the road. And he wasn't laughing. It was like this huge smiley, chuckly type thing. I was out running on Saturday, and over the other side of a hedge, a woman was just like, I'm like, what? What is it? Really weird. Really weird. Been listening to a podcast recently. Every now and then I start a new podcast. Oftentimes when I run out of my regulars to listen to, I will start a new one. Or if there's a particular episode, and when I go to get that episode, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't mind listening to this other, dozen episodes. So, started listening to a new podcast recently. Started not quite the first episode, but I think I started like episode 3 or 4 or something, and then like jumped through. So I was like, well, I'm not interested in that episode, but I am interested in that episode. Got about halfway through, and I was like, what is happening right now? There was something weird on one of these podcasts. I'm like, you know, when something's a little bit out of place and it takes you probably a little bit too long to work out what's happening, and then you work it out and you're like, realised that the podcast I was listening to was edited. They'd removed the swearing. I was like, why would you do that? And it's something that I've come across a little bit recently. Like, sometimes it sounds strange, but I'll listen/watch a podcast on YouTube. Often when I'm coding podcasts myself, there's like little bits of downtime, and you'll sometimes be like, I'll just put this podcast on if it's a video podcast. And every now and then I'm like, was that edited? So I'm listening to this podcast, and like I say, halfway through all the episodes I had to listen to, I started noticing that it was being edited. I'm like, okay, why? Like, are you trying to get a younger audience to listen, so you want the explicit tag removed from the podcast? But then the host of the podcast swears like a sailor. Then there was an episode that I got to where the guest that they had on, every other word was a swear word. So when your host swears like an absolute trooper and your guest swears like a trooper, your podcast essentially is just like, in a sentence of 20 words, you get 3. And it's just blank, 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 and then blank, 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 it, blank, blank. And it's like, I don't understand what's happening. It's the weirdest thing. There was points in time where there was entire sections of no sound. When you're listening to the audio of a podcast, no sound is a bad thing. You start thinking that your earphones have died, or your phone's stopped, or your phone's broken. You don't think, oh no, they've just taken all the swear words out, but of the 20 words in the last sentence or two, 18 of them were swear words. It's the weirdest thing. Now, I will admit, more recently, for a variety of different reasons, I have tended to self-edit, I think is the way I would word it. I use lots of flips, as I'm sure you'll have noticed. Ironically, I was doing it a lot in this episode to prove a point. And then I fired off a shit. Not like that. Not in the toilet. Just a verbal one. And I'd like to tell you it's because, as a parent with young children in the house, I'm trying to set a good example by not swearing as much. But, as my youngest daughter pointed out to me the other day, when she came to ask me what exactly the problem was when I was shouting every single swear word known to man, just on a loop, because, as a rational human being, I couldn't get the pushchair to stand in the corner. That is a much longer story than that. However, that was the actual upshot of it. And apparently it needed every single swear word. I keep saying I'm gonna stop. Any day now. So, talking of running, as I often do, I should stop really. I think it's probably boring. I realised today when somebody said to me, "You must do a lot of exercise." And I was like, I mean, yeah, but I look like a sack with lots of poopy in. Anyway, I did a run. And if you cast your mind back a few weeks, couple of months, there was a point in time where I was saying the only thing I was interested in, that I cared about at that point in time, was the longest run banner. And I've been working up to it. I was like, I need to get back to where I was before I broke my arm. And I knew it was coming. I just didn't quite know when. And then this window of opportunity opened up. I was like, right there, I can do it. Because I haven't got this commitment or that commitment or the other commitment. And then it all went wrong because I was going to do it at a particular point in time, at a particular point in the day. And then I wasn't able to do it at that point in the day. So I had to move when I was going to walk the dog and all this. Anyway, not important. So I knew it was coming. And I set out with the one goal that was to get that banner. And I knew the easiest way to secure that banner was to do a 10-mile run. Now then, I will say this. In my head, when I hear someone say half marathon, in my head I go, half marathon's a long way. But I think I could do it. In my head, I hear marathon. And I go, I'll tell you something, a marathon's a long way. But I think if push came to shove, I could do it. And then I listen to these people, these ultra marathon runners, 50 miles, 100 miles, 150, 200, 200 plus, 240 miles. And in my head, I go, yeah, I could give it a go. And then there's that part of me that goes, are you mental? You are several stone overweight, and you are, for want of a better way of putting it, a pussy. And I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So 10 miles was working on the principle that just before I broke my arm, I did 9 point something miles. And that was that. Something I forgot to take into account, or a series of things I forgot to take into account. Number one, at the point I did 9 and a bit miles, I was absolutely crushing life in general. I mean, like a lot of aspects of life. Every other day I was running in a weighted vest. I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning. I was running for 2 hours. I was crushing it. I was just going from strength to strength. Every day was better than the day before it. All of the cliches you can possibly imagine. I was a walking cliche. That was then. Now, I struggle to get out of bed before 7. I mean 8. I struggle to do the minimum amount of running I need to do in a day to hit my goal targets and whatever else. Some days I'm like, well, I've absolutely shit the bed today, so I'm going to have to get on the treadmill 3 times today, as well as doing a workout, and I'm probably going to miss my goal even then. That's where I'm at now. The thought of putting a weighted vest on and running to the end of the road terrifies me. And it's all around this. I've had this huge knock in my ability, in my mental capacity, and a variety of other things. So apparently, the best thing to do is to go run 10 miles. And I had in my head all these different ways I could do it. And the problem you've got with something like that is every distance you think about is not the right distance. Here's what I mean. If I run my standard 5-mile run, it's 5 miles. I know it's 5 miles. I run it 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. It's 5 miles, almost to the mile. If I do my 2.2 mile run on top of 5 miles, boom, 7 miles right there, baby. If I then run the dog walk, that's 2 miles. Boom, 9 and a bit miles. All I then have to do is the shorter dog walk, which is 1.3 miles, and there it is, baby. Over 10 miles. Boom shakalaka, we're home for breakfast. However, the reality is, and this is where it gets really weird, and I do understand it, but I don't understand it. Here's where it gets weird. Your 5 mile run, 5 miles, job done. Your 2.2 mile run, that's a mile. There you go. Work that one out. It's 2.2 miles if you run it, but if you add it to a 5 mile run, it's a mile. Okay, while you're doing the maths for that one, let me add the 2 mile dog walk, which isn't 2 miles when you add it to what is now only a 6 mile run. So we've just crossed the 7 mile mark, but we've done 9 miles worth of running. Over 9 miles worth of running. Okay, well that's not a problem, because part of we can tag a bit on to the dog walk, which we know is a 5k. So let's add that on. It's an extra 1 and a bit. Okay. At the point that you've done a 5, a 2.2, a 2, and a 3.2, and you've reached 8 and a bit miles, you start losing your mind. Nothing makes sense. Up is down, black is white, green is yellow. Everything loses all meaning, and you realise that you can't possibly run 10 miles because it's not humanly possible. Somebody needs to come to me and explain that phenomena to me, because it makes literally no sense. How is that a thing? When I got to about 9 miles where I was like, I am losing my marbles here. I need to put another mile on this, and I am dying. So I knew I was a certain distance away from home, but I could already sense that for all the will in the world, I knew it wasn't going to be a mile away. So I carried on, I plugged away, and I passed the house, and I was like, I checked, and it was like 9.59, and I was just like, oh man. And every part of me wanted to just turn and go home. I was like, no, I can't. So I head off, I go down, I do another part of the dog walk, and start heading home, and it ticks over to 10 miles. And I'm like, cool, I just need to go home now. The thought of going home was like, I don't know if I can make it. In the end, it was like 10.38. I got home, it took me a couple of hours. And that was that. I walked through the door, like, hey, I'm back. And then my body was just like, we can go into shock now. Yeah? So I needed to put a jacket on. I was sat on a chair. My youngest daughter decided, you look like a man that needs me to run full speed at you maybe 30 times. In the end, I basically had to leave the room. I had to go upstairs because the thought of just everything that was going on, I was like, I have to leave. I went upstairs, I lay on the bed for about 4 minutes, was just like, no, this is no good because I'm probably going to fall asleep, and if I fall asleep, I'll probably be here for the rest of the day. That's just not the answer. I come back downstairs. I sit back down and basically pass out for probably in the region of about 2 hours. I woke up, was like, I need food. So I throw a load of calories down my face and was just like, this was maybe not the best idea. But I did it. And now I'm like, well, I got that banner, didn't I? There it was on the screen. Longest run. Cool. obviously now, to get that banner again, I have to go further. So there's that. What didn't help any of this situation was a month and change into it, still dealing with this illness. Saw a thing on Twitter the other day where, unfortunately, a company that I had a big falling out with, well, no names mentioned, but a company that I really believed in and I really got behind and I really backed them, then decided to turn around and give all of their customers at that time the middle finger, and then went on to bigger and better things. They posted on Twitter about this illness. And they were like, oh, big shout out to anybody that's dealing with this illness, and rattled through all the symptoms. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I've had. And they were like, who's been dealing with it for 3 weeks? I was like, I'm not alone. Somebody else. Got to Friday, bearing in mind the long run was Saturday, got to Friday, and I just couldn't. There was this thing where Friday evening, I fell asleep, sat on the sofa, and woke up at, I think I fell asleep like early evening and woke up at like midnight. Was like, well, I am never going to sleep now. Got up, saw the dog, sent him off to bed, brushed teeth, got into bed, was like, I mean, this is probably a waste of time all round. And then slept for 8 hours. Super lethargic, super tired. All I could do, all I wanted to do was sleep for like 2 days. It was not good. It was bad news. Still not feeling right now. Still fighting something, and returned home this evening to find a new and interesting variation of sickness in our house. 2 thumbs way up there. Looking forward to getting that next. So yeah, that is the week that was. Let's talk entertainment. I've written something down on my list of entertainment and I haven't finished it. So, unfortunately, it'll have to wait. It does mean I've got one less thing to talk about. TV-wise, I watched and finished the series Agent Elvis. Animated series on Netflix, done by Priscilla Presley. Great voice cast. Matthew McConaughey, Don Cheadle, Caitlin Olsen. Another guy that I can't bring myself to mention. I really enjoyed it. I think I mentioned it last week. I finished off the episodes. I really enjoyed it. It was cool. It was fun. It was like Archer meets Hitmonkey. I just thought it was really enjoyable. I enjoyed watching it. I thought it was cool. Watched a movie, Saturday night movie, baby. Yeah. So, saw a trailer for a film a while ago and was like, ooh, that looks fun. George Miller's 3,000 Years of Longing. Now then, part of the trailer I was like, looks like a bit of a love story. But it also looked super mental and crazy. It kind of struck me in the sense of everything, everywhere, all at once. So I was like, I kind of fancy seeing that. One of those, not enough to go to the cinema in case it was just a love story and then you're a bit like, this is embarrassing. Literally, the other day, it popped up as a, hey, this is available on Prime. I'm like, hell's yeah, Saturday night movie, yes please. Put it on Saturday night and watched it. Short version is, it's a love story. Longer version is, it's Tilda Swinton, is it? And Idris Elba. Idris is good. I know that it's been floating around for a while, but I do kind of hope he gets the next run as Bond, even though he said he doesn't want to do it. So, shortest version is, a woman is in Turkey, finds a bottle in a shop, in the process of cleaning it, opens it, and out pops a djinn, or a genie, if you like. The djinn wants to give her 3 wishes. She is a rather educated woman, and she knows the dangers of wishes and how terrible things can go if you make 3 wishes. So basically doesn't want to. And it's the film is mostly about him telling her the story of his life and the wishes that he's granted for people, in kind of a trying to convince her to make the 3 wishes. It was a love story, like I say, but it was certainly a very enjoyable one. It is very much a film in the sense that Everything Everywhere All at Once made me believe again that cinema actually still exists. And this was very much similar in that vein, that it's like, oh, there are still good films out there. Shortest version is it's available on Prime. If you've got Prime and you fancy a jolly good, entertaining movie, give it a go. Both the main actors in it are very good. It was just a very enjoyable film. I really enjoyed it. Computer game wise, I was having a conversation today saying my computer game playing time has been seriously reduced recently. For example, probably not going to play any computer games this evening because I'm doing a podcast. Tuesday podcast related, Wednesday podcast related. By Thursday, there's a little bit of game playing time. Thursday, Friday, sometimes on a Saturday, and sometimes on a Sunday. So it is there, but it's a lot more reduced than it once was. However, managed to finish Leon's story of Resident Evil 2, the remake. By the time I'd sort of finished Leon's story, just before finishing it, I was getting a bit annoyed. There was this puzzle that was super annoying. And in the end, I had to look it up on the internet. And even looking it up on the internet didn't make it super evident. But I did get through it. And then the end was very good. And then you can play it again as Claire Redfield, which I did. Playing as Claire was a bit different. If I'm honest, a bit more entertaining, bit more fun. There is an aspect that's a bit more annoying when you play as Claire, and it starts a bit earlier on in the game. However, it also ends sooner for Claire than it does for Leon. Claire's got some cool weapons. When you compare a grenade launcher to a shotgun, it's a bit of a weird one. So Claire's weapons are probably better. She gets a good variety of different weapons, which is fun. I got a weapon in the game when I was playing as Claire, which I never fired a single shot with. So Saturday night, I'm like, do you know what? I'm playing Resident Evil 2. Admittedly, it's the remake, but it's still Resident Evil 2. I'm like, this feels super old school to me. Sod it. I'm staying up late. So I stayed up late. Got to 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, yeah, boy, I'm playing Resident Evil 2. I'm staying up late. It felt super old school, super naughty. I'm like, man, all I need now is some drugs. And then I watched the clock go from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. in an instant. And I went, oh shit, the clock's changed. Oh no, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I need to go to bed. Yeah, that's how rock and roll I am. I did finish Claire's story. Claire gets an extra little bit at the end. which I thought was interesting. I thought it was interesting to have Claire go off and like finish that last bit of the game for both characters. I thought that was kind of cool. Let's face it, what is the only thing to do when you finish Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 4 has just been released? That's right. Start Resident Evil 3 Remake. I really want Resident Evil 4 Remake, and that seems strange in a lot of ways because I think I've owned in my time about 5 different versions of Resident Evil 4. I think I own a version of it currently. I think I paid like £6 for it on the Xbox or something not too long ago. But everything I've seen for the remake of Resident Evil 4 just looks great. I really want to play it. However, I can't afford computer games, so I've got to go with what I've got. I got Resident Evil Remake 2 and 3 for £12.50 a couple of months ago. So I was like, hey, Resident Evil 3 time. I was like, I'll start it because I've not got long before I've got to go to bed, but I've got long enough to start it and do the first bit of the game, which I did. Honestly, Resident Evil 3 Remake, the opening of that game kicks like a mule. It looks amazing. And it's super intense. It looks great. It plays great. I was like, I am proper blown away by how good the start of this game is. On the flip side, I'd completely forgotten that it's more based in the city. And obviously, having played 2 playthroughs of Resident Evil 2, which is set in a police station, an underground car park, a lab, a greenhouse type thing. What I'm saying is it's all very enclosed. So going from that to being out in the streets, it's a little bit different. It takes a little bit of getting used to. I was starting to get a bit lost in a way, whilst at the same time finding the thing I needed to find. So I was a bit like, okay. So yeah, apparently it's not very long. So potentially shouldn't take me too much playing. And then I'll have to make a decision on Resident Evil 4. Hopefully by then it'll have been out a couple of weeks. And we'll have to see what the price of it is. He says, knowing that it'll still be full price. There we go. That is it. That is the podcast. And what did I tell you? It's absolutely over an hour. Half an hour, my foot. Anyway, I'll catch you next time. So there we go. What did you think of that? Short and... it wasn't in the end, was it? I don't know what happens. I get on a tangent, I guess. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Before you go, one thing you could do for me is, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. Leave us a review. Share the podcast around. What else? Oh yeah, check out the website, cookiecast.com. There's social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to this episode of CookieCast.